Good evening, and welcome to the University of Washington College of Education graduation ceremony. My name is Mia Tuan, and as Dean of the College, it is my pleasure to serve as Master of Ceremonies for our celebration. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the First People of Seattle, the Duwamish past and present, and honor with gratitude both the land as well as our ongoing commitments to them and the Coast Salish peoples. Thank you to the many family members and friends who have joined us from around the world to commemorate the 141st graduating class of our college. We gather to honor the more than 700 new educators, researchers, and leaders who are receiving their degrees today, and to celebrate their outstanding achievements. Graduation is a time-honored tradition, but as we all know, this year is different. To start, we are honoring our graduates virtually rather than in person. Beyond loved ones at home, we hope you celebrate with family, friends, and your college community on social media throughout our event. Use the hashtags HuskyEducators and UWGrad20 on your social posts, tag the college, and be sure to keep an eye on social media feeds through the Marching Order platform. Graduates, please do post photos of yourself and your special people so we can bring our community together and share in each other's joy. Second, this year's graduation ceremony will have both live presentations as well as a recorded program. During our live event, we will feature 2 student speakers from the class of 2020, as well as a poem by the college's artists in residence, written just for our graduates. Immediately following the live event, please watch the second part of our celebration, which can be found on the Marching Order platform. There are 3 recorded videos, one featuring our undergraduate degree recipients, the second featuring master's and specialist degree recipients, and the third featuring our doctoral degree recipients. Again, please continue to use the hashtags HuskyEducators and UWGrad20 as you and your classmates have your names announced. And third, it is important to acknowledge that today's celebration is happening against the backdrop of nationwide uprisings over systemic racial inequality, in addition to the grief, stress, and inequities laid bare by the coronavirus pandemic. Today, we shower our graduates with the love and admiration they deserve for completing their degrees. We send them off in style and celebrate their brilliance, perseverance, and commitment to serving youth and families. But tomorrow, we get back to the hard work of social transformation and teaching for social justice, because our work has never been more important than it is right now. One of the college's most meaningful commencement traditions is the procession of our graduates and faculty into the space where family and friends wait to receive them. For several years, that procession has been led by a bagpiper, and this year is no different. Graduates, as you watch and listen to the video, I encourage you to pause and to reflect. While we are physically apart, all that you have done here at the College of Education has been as part of a community of learners, and we remain that community today. Graduates, this is a day I know you have been eagerly anticipating. But like all of you, this isn't how I imagined we would be celebrating your achievements. In my imagination, I picture a sea of graduation robes and festively decorated mortarboards. I see thousands of beaming family members and friends waving and screaming when their graduate's name is called. And I see a few of you carrying little ones on stage while you receive your diploma. The truth is, while the pomp and circumstance of a traditional graduation is pretty impressive, what really matters is the power of being witnessed by your loved ones as you achieve a major milestone in your life. Whether you walk across an impressive stage or stand in your living room as your name is called, it's the people who love you and have stood by you that matter. And so I invite you now to take a moment to thank these special people, either in person or on your favorite social media, for believing in you and sharing in your journey. I've also been reflecting on the theme of this year's graduation ceremony, tipping points. This theme was chosen long before COVID-19 became part of our vocabulary, and long before the names George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery became the latest symbols of racial injustice and the callous disregard for Black lives in America. It is inspired by one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s most famous quotes: "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." I must admit that it is hard at this particular moment to feel we are bending at all, much less in the right direction. Our world feels dangerously divided right now, and the ideal of justice for all a distant fantasy. But King's words are clear, that the arc is long, and progress is measured in units of time that you and I may not have the privilege of witnessing. And yet, we must persist, because this is our work as educators, practitioners, researchers, and leaders in education. It is our responsibility to tip the scales in all the ways that we can to ensure a high quality and affirming education for all of our youth, but especially those farthest removed from educational justice. Too often, schools have been complicit in reproducing inequities and in harming youth and families who don't fit some narrow definition of the mainstream. But at the same time, schools have been and can be a central site for creating a more equal and plural society. Moving forward from this historic moment, it will take all of us to both support and hold school systems accountable in making the shift from can to must. Graduates, you are ready for this task. You are a member of one of the top public colleges of education in the nation. But you don't carry that responsibility alone. Your alma mater and college community stand with you, and we have your back. We are in your intellectual DNA, on your social media feeds, and are always here to support your actions, your learning, and your growth. Graduates, you inspire me. You embody my best hopes and dreams for a just and inclusive future. You possess fiery conviction, keen intellect, critical consciousness, courage, self-awareness, and perhaps most importantly, a deep and abiding love for humanity. I have faith that you are the generation that will help change our world. And your faculty and I couldn't be prouder of who you are and the amazing things that you are going to do. It is now my honor to introduce the first of our student speakers from the class of 2020. Our undergraduate speaker for today's celebration is Fatima Huda Sheikh, who is graduating from our Education, Communities, and Organizations program, or ECO. Fatima is a leader on campus and in the community, with a focus on opening doors of knowledge and possibilities to people from all backgrounds. She has served on the Student Leadership Council for our ECO major, and this year was the inaugural undergraduate chair of the Associated Students of the College of Education. Fatima's dedication to uplifting communities includes serving as an instructional facilitator and community outreach organizer for API Chaya, an organization supporting survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, and as a youth director at the Islamic Center of Redmond.
Thank you, Dean, for that wonderful introduction. Before I get into my speech, I'd like to extend a word of thanks to our teachers who have thoughtfully created curriculums, setting up classrooms to encourage inquiry and dialogue, as well as our faculty and staff who have supported our social and emotional learning, helping to establish excellent values that we can take and act on in the future. Your presence has had an enormous positive impact, and I know that I, along with many others, will miss you all dearly. Class of 2020, families, friends, students, alumni, and our wonderful communities. They say that absence makes the heart grow fonder. As a student at the College of Education for the past 3 years, not having attended classes in person for the last 3 months has definitely made me miss our beloved campus. Instead of all-nighters at Odegaard Library, there are now late-night binges of recorded class sessions. Instead of early morning coffee runs to get us going, there are now breakfasts, second breakfasts, 11s, lunch, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper to keep us fueled. Instead of scheduling meetings with one another in the Miller Hall conference rooms, we're now studying and organizing, mobilizing ourselves over Zoom. This time of absence from the University of Washington has made me realize the importance of 3 things. 1, living in the moment. 2, recognizing the value of our education. And 3, taking action now. One of my favorite quotes from the Japanese animation studio, Studio Ghibli, is, "The wind is rising, we must try to live." Living in the moment is important to us, now more than ever. Being in an anxious time of uncertainty, we need to hold on to the memories of our past and take hold of what's happening currently. Instead of spending the best times of our lives waiting for the best times to happen, we need to live in the moment, free ourselves from our boundaries, and be happy working with what we've got. We may not always see greatness in front of us. Sometimes we don't even realize that we are in an important time, a tipping point, until it passes. From time to time, we deal with what we have on hand to survive, but should never forget how to thrive. I'd like to take this commencement as a sort of stage of self-reflection, a conclusion to all the moments important to me and my peers at the COED. This is a joyous time, something to celebrate. Let's take a pause and think about all the hard work and the effort, dedication that we have put in towards our degrees. In the weeks leading up to this graduation ceremony, I have thought many times about what will I do with my degree? What do I do with my education? And I am reminded time and time again of what it really means to be educated. The word educate has the Latin root of educare, which means to mold and to nourish. Our time here at the COED has been our molding and our nourishing. The purpose of our college life hasn't been to get all the knowledge in the world, but rather to grow and understand the different ways and tools in which we can access that knowledge. This is the value of our education. Whether you attended the College of Ed because it was a calling, or you wanted to find out more about yourself, or perhaps it was the last major open for you to apply to, whatever it may be, you now have the tools to continue learning throughout your life. We haven't been taught what to think, but rather how to think. We haven't been given all the knowledge in the world, but we have been given the tools to access it. From describing the inequalities in our systems, to growing in our social and emotional learning, to utilizing important critical thinking, these tools provide us with skills, agency to take action now. Our actions, no matter how small, have an impact. How many times do we think about the wonders of time traveling? When someone talks about time traveling, they get excited about radically changing the present by making a small change in the past. But barely anyone talks about in the present how we can radically change the future by doing something small now. The protests and calls for justice right now may seem like one moment out of many, but they are really reflections of a larger broken system. We need to recognize the failures in our institutions that have led to this point and utilize the educational tools available to us in answer. Terrence Floyd, the brother of George Floyd, has said, "Educate yourselves and vote." That's how we get through this. This is not the time to stay silent. I urge you all, I urge our educators. We are all graduating, looking for the next thing to do in this uncertain time. Go out and do anti-racism work. That's where you'll find your certainty. That's where you'll find your steadiness. Educational justice is both individual and community work. It's breaking down barriers in our institutions and uplifting marginalized voices and spaces. You can simultaneously be appreciative for your education and critique it. We as individuals have gotten so far, done so much to be proud of. At the same time, we recognize that our success is a community success. We are hopeful for the future because of the people who have shaped it. I'd like to give a shout out to all the minority and marginalized students on campus, from the first generation college students to those on financial aid, caregivers, DACA students, and the brown and black communities. As educators, we can sometimes feel that the challenges we face are faced by us alone. However, our experiences in learning have led us to build a community of inspiring families, friends, students, teachers who are there to support, share, and show up on our path to success. Finally, I'd like to share with you some verses of the Quran which inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. This is chapter 103 about the importance of time. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. The translation of this is, by time, indeed mankind is in a loss, except for those who have believed and done righteous deeds and advise each other to truth and advise each other to patience. Class of 2020, recognize the time that you are in. Don't take losses, take chances. Go out there, find truth. Recognize the value of our education. Spread justice and do your best, not only to live, but thrive in this world. Congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you, Fatima, for sharing your inspiring message with us. And now it is my great pleasure to welcome our graduate student speaker, Diana Velazquez, to the podium. Diana is a first-generation college student and will graduate with her master's in teaching and an endorsement in English language learning. Diana worked in higher education for 4 years before entering the University of Washington's Seattle Teacher Residency to pursue a career in teaching. Diana completed her student teaching at West Seattle Elementary and has been hired as an elementary teacher at Licton Springs K-8. In her spare time, Diana composes music that focuses on the lives of Latino immigrants.
Good evening. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the Seattle Teacher Residency Program, my mentor, Ms. Aisha, and my family. When you look up the word reina in the Spanish dictionary, its definition is queen. I met a reina 9 years ago, and she continues to teach and guide me in becoming the educator I want to be. I was completing my undergrad in San Diego, working with English language learners at a middle school. Reina was an 8th grader, and for 3 years, I'd been her college tutor. One day, I noticed Reina had not brought her glasses to school again. Finally, this day I asked, Reina, why didn't you bring your glasses? And she stared at the walls, trying to decide if she should let me into her secret. Do you really want to know? She asked. I'm not bringing my glasses because I'm scared of graduating from middle school. I'm not ready for high school. Reina, I said, are you trying to fail so they don't promote you? Yes. Her fear of not being capable of success was pushing her to ensure her failure. What were the mixed messages this child was receiving about her self-worth that would propel her to this? Reina means queen, and yet we live in a country where some of our small kings and queens self-sabotage. Reina reminds me how important it is to see the gifts that children entrust in us, their brilliance, and the privilege it is to learn from each other. We are here today because we've all met a Reina, a bright, intelligent, beautiful child trapped within a school structure that says all children can learn and then erects obstacles that make it difficult and even impossible to move forward. We are part of the College of Education because we want to see changes. We are researchers analyzing data to address the inequities that led a child to think that failure was her only option. We are teachers because we want to listen to our students, differentiate, hold high expectations, and communicate with families so that the reinas we meet won't fail. And we're higher ed professionals so that when Reina goes to college, we'll be there to support her as she transitions and develops her identity into the professional world. As I've gone through job interviews, one question has stood out. Why is there an educational opportunity gap? And I want to yell. Why are public schools segregated by race and income despite Brown versus Board of Education? Why must we fear the safety of our Black students? Why do our undocumented youth live in a country with the slogan, "Build that wall"? What are the obstacles that have historically snuffed out the brilliance of disproportionate number of children from certain groups? What is our collective responsibility and what will you contribute? When confronted with these questions, I am overwhelmed. The road for all of us, researchers, teachers, and higher ed professionals is a long one. But every day, our decisions and actions are what bend and mold the future of our education system. Teachers, when we reflect on our biases, create a team with families, and hold high academic and behavior expectations, we are tearing down obstacles. Researchers, when you build partnerships with schools and organizations and share your research with marginalized communities, you are tearing down obstacles. Higher ed professionals, when you challenge universities to view students beyond demographic numbers and truly address their needs, you are tearing down obstacles. And when you start feeling jaded, overwhelmed, and overworked, I want you to remember this. You are not alone. We are here next to you in university lecture halls and office buildings and classrooms in the district, making daily decisions so that children like Reina will grow up with the opportunities each and every one of them deserve. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And I say to you that our journey in our respective careers will be long and challenging, but worthy. And our daily decisions are what will change and transform it. Class of 2020, may you find joy, community, hope, and perseverance on your journey towards justice.
Thank you, Diana, for your remarks and for your service to students and families in our community. We have one more special guest for today's celebration. This year, the college hosted its first ever artist in residence, Siamak Vossoughi, and he has composed a poem just for our graduates. As education is both science and art, Siamak has taken on the role of supporting the college's mission by fostering creativity and a love of the written and spoken word. Siamak is author of Better Than War, a collection of short stories examining the Iranian-American experience, which received the Flannery O'Connor Award for Short Fiction. His latest collection of stories, A Sense of the Whole, is now available from Orison Books. Along with writing, he previously taught at a K-8 school in San Francisco.
Thank you, Dean Tuan. Accordions. Imagine you found yourself carrying an accordion. Somehow, an accordion had to get from here to there, and you were the one to do it. Suppose you saw someone coming from the opposite direction, carrying an accordion too. Wouldn't that be a hoot? Wouldn't you have to slap your forehead? Wouldn't you have to laugh or at least smile? Maybe even stop for a moment and do so together? Okay, now suppose you are carrying life. Life is not shaped like an accordion. Next to life, an accordion looks like a proper and sophisticated instrument, like a flute or a violin. Still, the day that life becomes an instrument is the day you'll see someone walking towards you carrying it too. And as for the distinction between instrument as a tool or as a music-making device, to hell with that. Any decent dictionary would tell you that those two are the same thing. Congratulations to the class of 2020.
Thank you, Siamak. The first part of our program will conclude shortly, but our celebration isn't over. Please take part in the second half of our graduation festivities by watching the recorded videos on the marching order platform. Again, the 3 videos featuring the reading of names of our class of 2020 by the college's faculty. One for our undergraduate degree recipients, a second for students receiving master's and specialist degrees, and a third for our doctoral degree recipients. In closing, thank you, family, friends, faculty, staff, and alumni for joining us from across the world to celebrate our class of 2020. Graduates, I am so proud of you. Our young people need you. Our world needs you. And don't ever forget that you are a force for justice. Please enjoy the rest of the celebration, and go Dogs.